And we continue at 1:06 in the afternoon, the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wangs in Culver City.
John, I've always said I love this audience, especially when they do the research that I'm too busy to do. Cynthia writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. She actually looked up on Transparent California what the salary is for the community engagement manager at the Sacramento Public Library Authority, the guy who came up with the idea to pass out condoms at the libraries. He makes $135K.
I wonder if he gets any bonuses for moving condoms.
What kind of no-bid contract did they make with what shoddy condom provider? Because I don't think those are anything that you'd see at Rite Aid.
Well, for a system that big, they're probably buying a lot of them.
And
maybe the contracts with Michelin.
And if you watch the video, I don't know where these condoms are from, but they look like they're wrapped in Christmas paper.
800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. It is a pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. He is an assemblyman representing the Fresno area in the California State Legislature, Assemblyman David Tangipa. Assemblyman, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me, and I'm glad to join all of you. But I've actually got almost all of the Eastern Sierras. So I go up to Calaveras, and I go all the way down to Inyo. So the top part's 45 minutes away from Tahoe. The southern part's 45 minutes away from Vegas.
All right. So you got the whole state covered.
I get to have some fun.
Yeah, for sure. Let's start out with the big news coming out of Sacramento that legislation that would have prohibited biological men from participating in women's sports did not make it through the California State Legislature. The majority Democrats voted it down. So Gavin Newsom won't be put in a position where he has to decide if he needs to sign or veto the legislation, which would be very interesting given his comments on his podcast with Charlie Kirk, where he indicated that he thought that biological men participating in women's sports was inherently unfair. What do you make of what happened with that legislation?
Well, if anybody watching that entire bill hearing, apparently saying boys are boys and girls are girls, and boys shouldn't be in girls' locker rooms, boys shouldn't play in girls' sports, and just by fixating on that, apparently that is Nazi ideology, is what was stated by some of our Democrat colleagues on the other side, that just simply saying boys don't belong in girls' spaces, we should protect girls' sports, we should protect girls' locker room, is apparently Nazi ideology. I mean, it's insanity what's happening right now, and it's ridiculous that we have to have this conversation, that we just have to create legislation to do this, because we thought it was over when Title IX was passed by the big old feminist movement and by every other industry, that now all of these lines are blurred, that we have to get back to it and address it.
Is this one of these subjects where you get the impression that the majority party, the Democrats that you serve with in the legislature, where their public position is different from their private position? And I say that because you have a big sprawling district. I would imagine after you're in session, some days you go out and have a drink or two and you chat with your colleagues as you eat dinner and go over what happened that particular day. And after a couple of cocktails, sometimes the truth comes out, the truth serum works. And many times people who take a very strong public position may not necessarily feel that way privately. Do you get the impression with your colleagues that their public position differs from their private position when they talk to you when no one's looking?
Oh, wholeheartedly. I agree with that statement 100%. I mean, you look at what Governor Newsom is doing right now, sharing, and that's where I tell people their positions on a lot of this hasn't changed. The polling has changed. And the ones that are a little bit, I think Governor Newsom knows how to play the game, so to say, in a very strategic way, that his position has changed because polls change. And he'll go out and say, boys do have an advantage, and we shouldn't use the term Latinx. But then you look at his history, and he's full of it. That is the same, that there are other individuals, in my opinion, that actually have the same sentiment. One of the most interesting things being up here is I get a lot of other colleagues in the Assembly and in the Senate that come up to me and they just go, hey, I just want you to know I'm not the crazy one, and I almost feel like they're held hostage by some of these extreme progressive members that are part of more of the Socialist Party than they are of the Democrat Party. They just have to identify in this two-party system as Democrats, but realistically they're socialists. They are anarchists. They prefer to tear this down. But there's been a circular firing squad created by this chokehold that they kind of have on some more of the moderate, very respectable members that we may have different ideologies, but we all want to look for solutions. Some of them want to just tear down the institution. And I think this is where they hang their hat on, is if you can blur the lines between boys and girls, men and women, you can convince anybody to be anything.
Well, and what the argument basically is an argument regarding fairness. Like when you're playing Little League, you don't allow 15-year-olds to play with 11-year-olds because that would be unfair. The 15-year-old kid would have an advantage over the 11-year-old kid. And back in the old days, there was a big controversy with, I think it was the Taiwan team in the Little League World Series, where their kids would have full beards and lie about their age. And that became a big controversy because people would say, hey, wait a minute, they're not 11. They're much older than that, and they have an advantage. You come at this from kind of a unique perspective because you played Division I college football for Fresno State. I would imagine you played sports pretty much your entire life. How many female to male transgendered athletes did you play with? Because I would imagine that this is going pretty much one way.
I think you're 100% correct on it. That I can tell you this right now. I didn't have any on my team. It wasn't really what we had assumed was as large of a deal as we thought it would be. And then you see what happens to Riley Gaines. She loses or shares a national championship with an individual that was swimming on the boys' team the year before, or the men's team. I mean, this is something that we've really got to realize when some of those who are arguing against the bill, they said, well, this only affects 5 athletes in K through 12 right now in the state. No. They're looking at it the complete wrong way. That means there are 5 spots taken away from girls right now, but it affects every single girl that they compete against, every single girl that's on their team, and every single one that in the future that now has to realize where they're going to put their own baseline. That it's not just taking 5 positions away from the girls playing in sports. It's also unfair to every single competitive member they're playing against. And we saw that come out with the San Jose State volleyball player, that there were Mountain West teams, and I played in the Mountain West for Fresno State, that actually forfeited the games and said that your advantage that you have by having a man on your team is actually, one, against Title IX regulations, and we're not going to play into this ridiculousness, that we just demand the same fairness that we already fought for 20 years ago.
Did you sense that there was any anger at all among your colleagues, your Democratic colleagues, towards Gavin Newsom? And I say that because had he not made the statement that he made on that podcast, this issue probably wouldn't have even come up for a vote. And the opposition party, you guys, the Republicans, certainly wouldn't have the wind at your sails.
It still would have came up for a vote because we had these bills kind of on the docket. I want to thank Assemblymember Kate Sanchez and former Assemblymember Bill Asaley, who was just appointed yesterday to be the new U.S. attorney in that area down south, the largest district covered by one of the attorneys in that area. So I just want to thank both of them for bringing this up. And now, but you're 100% right when it comes to Governor Newsom, him agreeing, there's a fracture in that entire Democratic colleagues they've created a circular firing squad when it comes to the positions that they are holding, don't hold, that same held hostage mentality by some of the far left progressive members on some of the more moderate members is all coming to fruition now. And I think they're more angry at Gavin Newsom because he has just sided with reasonability and said that I think boys are boys and girls are girls, and maybe we should have that conversation about fairness. So, yes, they're definitely angry, and that's where, if you look at what happened to me a couple of weeks ago, I was removed from my committees along with 4 of my other colleagues because they were angry that we wanted to hold criminals accountable in the state of California and didn't want some of our money to be used to protect criminal illegal aliens, that they removed me from my committee. So I I expect more lashes out. I don't know if they're going to lash out at the governor or what they're going to work on in that era. I don't know if they're going to lash out more at us as they try to treat us like an abused dog.
We're speaking with Assemblyman David Tangipa, who you can follow on X at David Tangipa. Assemblyman, you mentioned that you were booted from your committees. One of those committees that you were booted from was the Insurance Committee. They did not want you to be the Republican voice on that committee. And right after you were kicked off that committee, it was revealed that the state's insurance commissioner was spending a lot of time not in the state of California dealing with the insurance crisis, but going from junket to junket in states and countries all over the globe, including in Asia, in Latin America, in Europe. He went to the Gay Pride Festival in New York City, which doesn't have much to do with the insurance crisis in California. It was also revealed that he skipped many of the oversight committee hearings, not just in the Assembly, but in the California Senate, including one that took place weeks ago when he was at a junket in Bermuda. I guess he thought that was more important than dealing with the insurance crisis here in the state of California. What do you make of that timing, that you got kicked off that committee and then all of a sudden, oh, look, he's involved in all kinds of ethical scandals?
For me, it's about doing your job and being responsible, especially to those. We are public servants, and yet does it feel like some of our state elected officials are serving the public or serving themselves? And you could travel across the world, but when I look back at it and say, did you take on the insurance catastrophe, is the way I'm describing it now. It is no longer a crisis after the LA fires. It is a catastrophe, and things are getting significantly worse. And can you say that the insurance commissioner is doing a good job? I don't think so. I don't think the public feels so. And I don't think that there's a lot of general people out there that believe that you should go to New York, or you should go to Bermuda, or you should go to Spain, or you should go to Europe when you can't even fix California. And that's what we've really got to ask, is that he should be at every single one of these hearings. Some of his excuse was, oh, well, this is where the insurance companies meet. Well, Zoom, because we need you here in California, because right now insurers are adding quotes right now of $5,000 to $10,000. And one I just saw from a constituent of mine that has about 5 acres in the High Sierras. He just got a $21,000 quote this year for his insurance quote. And he's got a small, about 1,500 square foot house, but with 5 acres. And they just said it's too dangerous, so it's a $20,000 quote. And that's cut for California Fair Plan. We need you here. He needs to be here, and he needs to see how horrible the insurance market here is that we have in California. This has been boiling over for a long time, and their removal of me from this committee is because I demand the hard questions. When I played football, Coach Tedford, Jeff Tedford, one of the greatest coaches to ever play in NCAA, was one of my head coaches, and he always talked about accountability. And all we're asking for is accountability. But when you start asking the hard questions, we see what they do today. They will remove you from committees because they would rather sit on a dead horse instead of get off, stop beating it, and start finding solutions, because that's what Californians deserve today.
How much worse do you think it could get? And I ask that question because I recently tried to add insurance to my policy, and I've been with State Farm for a very long time. I've had the same agent for a very long time. And the agent essentially said, no, we can't even sell additional coverage to existing customers. And I had a conversation with the guy, and he basically said, look, if State Farm had it their way, they would be out of the California market entirely. They're not selling new policies. They'll honor the ones they have now, but they are dropping people, and they just don't see this market as being a viable market for the future of that company. Can you envision a scenario where California homeowners do not have the option to buy a policy from a mainstream company and will be forced to buy our policies from the people advertising on the billboards with the big boobs?
I hope that you and everybody at KABC potentially has a bottle of whiskey next to you or something, because I almost envision that it's impossible that it doesn't happen with the current state of affairs. And just to describe that to you, with what happened in the LA fires, the California Fair Plan alone is underwater $680 million. They're short $680 million. And we've heard about that $1 billion assessment that's going to be levied on every single property owner in the state of California, auto driver. All of that's going to be levied to pull the FAIR Plan out of pretty much insolvency. That will leave us with $350 million roughly in the account for the FAIR Plan to cover $450 billion worth of assets. So we will have $350 million in an account to cover $450 billion of assets. It means we have less than 1% for the next emergency, for the next wildfire. And one of the most dangerous areas right now is around the Big Bear area. That the riskiest areas for insurance companies right now, number 2, number 3, and number 4. The Palisades was the 5th, is the Big Bear general area. The rest of the state is also under threat as well. A majority of my high residential constituents are mainly on the FAIR Plan. And it's all boiling over. And what most people forget is that the FAIR Plan is not government insurance. It's actually a conglomerate of insurance. So that means that recognized insurers in the state of California have to take a portion of the FAIR Plan losses in respect to their amount of the market share in California. And insurance companies right now look at the state as a horrible, horrible, horrible place to do business. And State Farm has about 22% of the market right now. That means State Farm has to cover 22% of the losses on the FAIR Plan. If Liberty Mutual is at 18%, they cover 18% of the FAIR Plan. So in addition to their general business that they all have to cover, they then have to add in the 22% losses on the FAIR Plan. And now with this amount of exposure, with everything else that's happening, I've even spoken to some more of these insurance representatives that there's a potential that State Farm gets downgraded from the S&P from an A rating to a B rating. And if that happens, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac can no longer recognize them as insurers. And if that happens, we lose 22% of the entire market share in California will no longer have recognized insurance. That is where we're at today.
And that is a scary future. Assemblyman David Tangipa, you can follow him on X at David Tangipa. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, I hope you, again, cracked open that bottle of whiskey, but we're working on it.
All right. 3:01 p.m. I'll be there right with you. And Randy, coming up next week, we're leaving the studios and going on the road.
We're going back to Long Beach, everybody. I'm so excited about this. We're going to be celebrating the 20th anniversary of Gladstone's Long Beach and the 50th anniversary of the Long Beach Grand Prix. Join us next Friday, April 11th from noon to 3 for Fan Free Friday. We'll be broadcasting live from the beautiful patio right on the Rainbow Harbor in Long Beach. It's gorgeous out there. The view is amazing. The food is great. The drinks are great. Everything at Gladstone's is great. Gladstone's Long Beach is a great location for a date night, a delicious get-together with friends, a sunset cocktail, or family meals and celebrations. Gladstone's Long Beach, located directly across from the Pike Shopping Center. Make a reservation and join us next Friday.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Judy writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com and says, yay, finally in the Bay Area. I've been listening to you, John Phillips, since my short brief living in SoCal. I've been listening to you on my lunch hours using iHeartRadio, and I'm so glad I get to listen to you now live on KSFO. So glad the Bay Area finally gets a great show. Whenever I travel to SoCal, I look forward to switching over to the regular radio to hear your program, and now I can listen to the regular radio at lunch. I love that. Thank you so much, Judy.
And we're happy to be on the radio in Northern California, too. In fact, if you missed some of the episodes when we were only on in Southern California and you want to find out what you missed out on, Randy, that's easy to do.
There's only about 6 years worth of them. Go to The John Phillips Show, wherever you get your podcasts. You can search for The John Phillips Show on iHeart. You can search for The John Phillips Show on Spotify, Apple Podcast, anywhere that you get The John Phillips Show, you can listen to it. And you can listen to those podcasts wherever you want, whether it be in the car, at the office like Judy, or at the library.
Now parents are going to have to be concerned. Instead of coming back with a book, they're going to have to come back with a condom.
Whoa. Mom and Dad didn't see that one coming. And right now it's time to open up the California Crime Blotter.
If the cashier is dummy.
Questions?
And Randy, this edition involves pepper spray.
We told you about a month ago of an Orinda consignment store antique shop that got robbed and everyone in the store got pepper sprayed. Well, apparently, it's either these same guys or a crew doing the exact same thing in Lafayette now.
Uh-oh. Wear some goggles.
For more, here's KTVU, Fox 2.
Robberies and burglaries at East Bay consignment stores is now under investigation by several different agencies, including the ATF.
Because, the pepper spray.
If they let this go on, all of these clerks at the antique stores are going to look like James Worthy in the 1980s.
If the cashier is dummy.
KTVU's Tori Gaines has the story from Orinda.
Consignment store owners in the East Bay suburbs tell me they are beefing up their security measures after a trend of robberies and burglaries in the area. Divine Consign, a consignment...
That's a great name.
Well, if it rhymes like that, then maybe the owner of that shop can be the mayor of L.A., too.
Divine Consign, a consignment shop located on Oak Hill Road in Lafayette, was robbed in broad daylight Saturday afternoon. The robbery comes after several stores in the area were hit in a similar fashion. Now, consignment store owners in the East Bay tell me they are beefing up their security measures after the trend of robberies and burglaries.
They have pepper spray. They pepper sprayed my staff.
Why?
Could you imagine if you're a little old lady and you work at an antique shop and you show up, you clock in at the plant, and you get pepper sprayed by a bunch of teenagers and robbed?
And my customers.
Cindy is the owner of another consignment store, Hilton House in Orinda. She asked us not to use her name for her own safety. In early March, Cindy's store was robbed. Surveillance video...
Wait, so she owned that store too?
This woman has some bad luck.
It's the weirdest thing. It's specifically antique shops in the East Bay and specifically going after everyone with pepper spray.
And not just the employees, the customers, too.
Surveillance video from the robbery shows a group of suspects entering the store and pepper spraying people before smashing the jewelry cases and making off with their loot. Was it primarily jewelry?
Jewelry, gold, yellow gold jewelry.
Orinda.
They're golden than their hills.
Well, now they're out of the hills and in their bags.
Orinda Police and the Contra Costa Sheriff's Office are investigating the robbery. Now, Cindy and other consignment shop owners say they are learning more about the robbers and their pattern.
They come in and they look around a couple of days before.
Oh, they got to scope out the place first.
That was before they brought the pepper spray with them.
Do you know how suspicious all of these clerks are going to be of every person that goes in that store from now on?
Well, you know the type of person that shops at an antique store. And my guess is the people who rob them don't look like they're regulars.
If they were really, really, really smart, they would hire somebody who looks like your average consignment store shopper to case the joint. But apparently it's working out great for them because they have yet to be caught.
Check us out.
In nearby Danville, the owner of the Home Consignment Center tells KTVU his business has lost nearly $4 million in jewelry to robberies and burglaries.
Holy cow!
I guess they're making a lot of money at those consignment stores.
Well, if you think about it, you're talking about places that have sometimes some very expensive jewelry without any of the security measures you find at a typical jewelry store, like the vestibule with the iron gates that go down as soon as they hit the red button.
So you think they're sitting ducks?
Yep.
But when an
And it's another one of these things where, unfortunately, the more you report a story like this, the more the criminals who are watching KTVU are like, hey, there's an idea.
Well, it's interesting. You look at the Rite Aid, you look at the CVS, you look at the Walgreens, and they put the shampoo behind the bulletproof glass because they get robbed so often. But you think about the antique stores, and everything's just kind of out in the open because it's little old ladies that shop there. But now that word has gotten out that they have items that are worth a lot of money, I guess those stores need to harden their security too. Is nothing sacred?
But when an 86-year-old employee was injured, the company...
They're pepper spraying little old biddies.
Can you imagine what that scene must have looked like where you have the teenagers pepper spraying an 86-year-old woman?
It's unbelievable.
But when an 86-year-old employee was injured, the company decided to start arming their guards. The owner says he is now working with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives to investigate the trend, which stretches down to Southern California.
Of course.
Okay, say goodbye to your 86-year-old employees. If you got pepper sprayed at work and now you've got a guy standing next to you with a gun because the odds of you getting robbed are high enough to where they think that's necessary, maybe you should figure out a way to live within your pension.
We've reached out to ATF for details and are awaiting a response. Cindy says she and other consignment store owners nearby are ready to face whatever comes next.
Feeling that we are going to catch them. We will catch them. We're grouped up. We're connected to other consignment stores. They're after just consignment stores.
You know, I wonder if they're going to have their own pepper spray, and it'll be a mace-off.
It's possible.
So we are ready for them. Come on.
Download Fox.
There you go. There is the latest out of yet another consignment store hit by the pepper spray bandits.
I don't know if I'd go on television and tell them to show up and attempt to rob me, though.
They're not letting this happen to them again. They want to rough them up.
We're connected to other consignment stores. They're after just consignment stores. So we are ready for them. Come on.
Come on.
Maybe she has the place booby-trapped like Home Alone. But I don't know. That's what Gary Hart did to the National Enquirer when he said, I'm not having an affair. Go ahead and look into my past. That's when we found the picture about the monkey business.
That's the latest out of Lafayette.
Randy, it's time to reopen the California Crime Blotter.
If the cashier is dummy,
Questions?
And this edition takes us to San Rafael.
It's a tale as old as time because it feels like we have one of these stories every single day. Somebody takes a stolen car and crashes it into a store.
I wonder at what point will Kia start using that in the ads? We're the best battering ram out there.
For more, here's Cron 4.
Welcome back. Another camera store in the Bay Area has been targeted by thieves. This latest smash and grab in San Rafael caused thousands of dollars in damages. Cron 4's Sarah Simpson spoke with the store manager, who believes this string of burglaries is connected.
Thieves jumped the curb here on 4th Street and then smashed into this large window at Seawood Photo.
Just having glass is a liability these days.
At what point does one of these idiots drive through a wall not knowing that there's someone standing on the other side of that wall and someone gets seriously hurt or worse?
The security footage only captured the aftermath. The manager now working on getting better video from nearby businesses. All the while.
Not that that's going to matter unless you want to just upload it to TikTok.
The manager now working on getting better video from nearby businesses. All the while counting inventory to see just how much was stolen.
They broke the glass, tried to open our padlock, couldn't get through.
After failing to break...
So first they tried to break in the good old-fashioned way, but they couldn't make a dent. So then they decided to do what they've seen on the TV, and they rammed a Kia through the front door.
Okay, if you're inside the building and a car comes through the wall, do you think someone's there to rob you, or do you think it's an elderly driver who mistakes the gas pedal for the brake?
I think nowadays you think it's a robber.
After failing to break in through the back door and side window, thieves in black masks and hoods could be seen on security video heading towards the front of Seawood Photo in San Rafael.
And drove a car through this big front window here.
The store's manager, Zane Allen, walked us through the damage caused by the smash and grab that happened just before 3:30 Monday morning.
Total destruction. So our huge...
They probably ran over all the cameras they wanted to steal.
Yeah, what do you do if it's your shift in the morning and you show up to that mess?
Total destruction. So our huge laminated window was on the floor in pieces, glass everywhere. All of these cabinets have had the glass shattered.
San Rafael police responded within minutes, but...
And I'm sure whatever the value of whatever stolen was, it's nothing compared to how much it costs to fix all of this damage.
No. They got minimal merchandise, and this company now essentially has nothing left.
San Rafael police responded within minutes, but thieves had already taken off. Allen got a notification from the alarm system and rushed to the store.
Alarm. Notification. You have no wall.
Your store is gone, and so is your merchandise.
We first turned off the alarm and went and checked on our cat that was hiding in the back, scared.
He says the store cat, Flash, is still shaken up.
They almost ran over a store cat.
No compassion.
He says the store cat, Flash, is still shaken up.
Get it? Because it's camera shop.
I get it.
He says the store cat, Flash, is still shaken up.
Her eyes were huge, and she's still a little weird. She lives here full time, so she's really aware of any changes.
As the owner reels from this, Allen says the nearly 8 decades old camera shop has been getting overwhelming support from the community.
Store's been around for 8 years, and one Kia took them out.
Well, the store I think it was 8 decades is what they
80
said.
years. 80 years, excuse me.
Yeah. But it doesn't matter if the community supports the store. If there's nothing left, if you want to go buy a camera because you want that store to stay in business, but none of the cameras are left or available for sale, does it really matter?
A GoFundMe page has been set up to help with recovery.
Everyone was walking by and asking how they could help. We estimate losses probably around the $50,000 mark.
That is way more than whatever was stolen there, and good luck if they try to go through their insurance.
How do you even recover from that?
Another $10,000 in damages.
Seawood Photo isn't the only camera store being targeted by thieves in the Bay Area. In February, thieves rammed a car through the doors of Looking Glass in Berkeley. The same thing happened at San Jose Camera and Video and Shutterbug in Santa Rosa last month.
It doesn't matter where you are in the Bay Area, there's a chance your store could get run over by a Kia.
And what's funny is you look at the local news in Boise, you look at the local news in, I don't know, Albuquerque. You don't see this kind of chaos going on.
Well, in Albuquerque, you see a whole different kind of chaos.
Yeah, that's true.
Allen says they worry if people aren't held accountable, this will just keep happening.
As far as I know, there's no leads. I think, connecting between departments is difficult.
I reached out to San Rafael police to see if these camera store burglaries are related and if there's any evidence with other departments that suggests that these are orchestrated by the same thieves. I don't
know. It seems like these things are so common. They're happening all the time, and everyone already smashed up everything in Oakland. They got to go somewhere else.
Yes, and the answer from our Attorney General, Rob Bonta, is to sue Kia and Hyundai because those cars are too easy to steal.
Well, what do you know, Johnny? This wasn't the only crash and grab in the news today. You ready to reopen that blotter?
Let's open it up.
If the cashier is dummy.
Questions?
And this time, we're going to Sunnyvale. Let's go back to Cron 4.
And new at 5, the owners of a South Bay jewelry store are talking after would-be thieves tried to break into a store by, again, ramming a stolen car through the front door.
It's every hour there's a new one of these stories.
The writers at these stations can just cut and paste.
Cron 4's Stephanie Rothman has the story.
With bystanders outside, a car is seen on surveillance camera Saturday night at 6:30 p.m.
This wasn't no 3 a.m. one. This was during the evening hours.
6:30 p.m.? That's pretty brazen.
Intentionally backing up into Priya Jewelers in Sunnyvale.
And I was standing with the customer helping her out, and while the 3 ladies were inside, suddenly I heard the noise, booming noise. I turn and I see the wall caving in.
Oh my.
Good Lord.
not just once, but as the driver attempts a second time, the owner's husband springs into action, protecting the family-run small business with a handgun before the suspects drive away.
Hey, look at that.
So if you want to keep all of your merchandise from being stolen, you have to have a gun and be prepared for a shootout with a car.
But that's the thing. Even though they didn't get anything, the damage is still going to be in the tens of thousands of dollars.
And this small business is going to be put behind the 8 ball.
The driver was actually pulling the car forward again.
To come back again.
Come back for a third hit. And I reached the car and I shouted at them so that they can kind of look at me. I just want to do something.
Hey, look at here, buddy.
I have 6 bullets in the chamber. What are you going to do about it?
I just want to do something preventive because I did not want them to come inside. Once they come in, that's a totally different ballgame.
Since opening 4 years ago, owner Priya Vasan says her husband has always supported her. But now she's even more grateful to see his support channeled into heroism.
So this store was her idea?
I think that's what they're trying to tell us.
Well, he protected it. Kind of.
Well, good for you. What a wild time we live in, where stolen cars are used as battering rams to drive through the wall of businesses, the front wall, and rob them.